The National Constituent Assembly was formed from the National Assembly on 9 July 1789 during the first stages of the French Revolution. It dissolved on 30 September 1791 and was succeeded by the Legislative Assembly. Background: Estates General. The Estates General of 1789, made up of representatives of the three estates, which had not been convoked since 1614, convened on 5 May 1789. The Estates General reached a deadlock in its deliberations by 6 May. The representatives of the Third Estate attempted to make the whole body more effective and so met separately from the 11th of May as the Communes. On the 12th of June, the Communes invited the other estates to join them. Some members of the First Estate did so the following day. On the 17th of June 1789, the Communes approved the motion made by CIs that declared themselves the National Assembly by a vote of 490 to 90. The Third Estate now believed themselves to be a legitimate authority equal to that of the king. Elements of the First Estate, primarily parish priests who were closer in wealth to the Third Estate compared to the bishops who were closer in wealth to the Second Estate, joined the Assembly from the 13th of June onwards, and, on the 19th of June, the whole of the clergy voted to join the National Assembly. A legislative and political agenda unfolded. Tennis court oath. There were soon attempts by King Louis XVI and the Second Estate to prevent the delegates from meeting, as well as misunderstandings on both sides about each other's intentions. Locked out of its chamber, the new Assembly, led by its president Jean-Sylvain Bailly, was forced to relocate to a nearby tennis court. On the 20th of June, there, it swore the tennis court oath, promising not to separate and to reassemble wherever circumstances require, until the constitution of the kingdom is established and consolidated upon solid foundations. Failing to disperse the delegates, Louis started to recognize the validity on the 27th of June. The Assembly renamed itself the National Constituent Assembly on the 9th of July and began to function as a governing body and a constitution drafter. However, it is common to refer to the body even after then as the National Assembly, or the Constituent Assembly. Structure in summer 1789. Following the storming of the Bastille on the 14th of July, the National Constituent Assembly became the effective government of France. In the words of historian François Minette, the Assembly had acquired the entire power. The corporations depended on it. The National Guards obeyed it. The royal power, though existing of right, was in a measure suspended, since it was not obeyed, and the Assembly had to supply its action by its own. Minette François, History of the French Revolution from 1789 to 1814. France, p. 61. The number of the Estates General increased significantly during the election period, but many deputies took the time arriving, some of them reaching Paris as late as 1791. According to Timothy Tackett, there were a total of 1177 deputies in the Assembly by mid-July 1789. Among them, 278 belonged to the nobility, 295 to the clergy, and 604 were representatives of the Third Estate. For the entire duration of the Assembly, a total of 15 deputies were certified, with 330 for the clergy, 322 nobles and 663 deputies of the Third Estate. Tackett noted that the majority of the Second Estate had a military background, and the Third Estate was dominated by men of legal professions. Some of the leading figures of the Assembly at this time were these: the conservative foes of the Revolution, later known as the Right, Jacques-Antoine-Marie de Cazares, a forthright spokesman for aristocracy; the Abbé Jean-Sufren Maury, a somewhat inflexible representative of the Church; The monarchians allied with Jacques Necker, inclined toward arranging France along lines similar to the British constitution model, with a House of Lords and a House of Commons. Pierre Victor, Baron Malouet, Trophime Gérard, Marquis de Lally, Tolentol Stanislas Marie Adelaide, Comte de Clermont Tonnerre, Jean-Joseph Mounier. The left was still relatively united in support of revolution and democracy, representing mainly the interests of the middle classes but strongly sympathetic to the broader range of the common people. In the early period, its most notable leaders included Honoré Mirabeau, the Marquis de Lafayette, and Jean-Sylvain Bailly. Minette also points to Adrien Duport, Antoine Pierre-Joseph Marie Barnave, and Alexander Lameth as leaders among the most extreme of this party in this period, leaders in taking a more advanced position than that which the revolution had attained. Lameth's brother Charles also belonged to this group. One must add the Abbé Emmanuel Joseph seized foremost in proposing legislation in this period, and the man who, for a time, managed to bridge the differences between those who wanted a constitutional monarchy and those who wished to move in more democratic directions. Proceedings. For a detailed description of the proceedings in the National Constituent Assembly and related events, see the following articles. French Revolution, from the abolition of feudalism to the civil constitution of the clergy. French Revolution, from the summer of 1790 to the establishment of the Legislative Assembly. For a list of presidents of the National Constituent Assembly, see List of presidents of the French National Assembly. For a partial list of members of the National Constituent Assembly, see Alphabetical list of members of the National Constituent Assembly of 1789. Restoration of King. In the summer of 1791, the National Constituent Assembly decided that the king needed to be restored to the throne if he accepted the constitution. The decision was made after the king's failed attempt to flee to Varennes. That decision enraged many Parisians into protesting, and one major protest devolved into the Champ de Mars massacre, with 12 to 50 people killed by the National Guard. Dissolution. After surviving the vicissitudes of a revolutionary 2 years, the National Constituent Assembly dissolved itself on the 30th of September 1791. The following day, the Constitution of 1791 went into effect, which granted power to the Legislative Assembly.